All right, guys, welcome. I just realized I was talking to myself for the past 5 minutes because the stream was not live. But hey, that's what you go through when you're doing this for the first time. So I hope the audio is good. Please let me know in the comments. Um, yeah, that was weird, but yeah, big week for Nikola this week, guys. I mean, this has probably been one of the most monumental weeks for Nikola in, I would say, since early May, because that's when earnings came out last time. But yeah, so one of the few press releases that I saw this morning was about this, which is Nikola announcing locations of 3 California dispensing stations. Now, this is a pretty important milestone because this was something Kim Brady set out at the start of the year for 2022, which is obviously a pretty monumental year for Nikola and the company. And the key thing to keep in mind here is that this is a dispensing station, right? So dispensing stations are the hydrogen facilities where you store the hydrogen, you process it, and then you feed it through a funnel that can be discharged at a low pressure or at a high pressure, whatever you need, to the truck or the vehicle that needs to be fueled. And obviously, this is a pretty complex technology, right? This hasn't been done on a very large scale for a very long time. Toyota is the last one that was really releasing these hydrogen refueling stations, but we all know that the demand for hydrogen is just there. I know a lot of people disagree with the opportunity behind hydrogen, the technology, and the fact that it's expensive and inefficient. Well, none of that really matters in a big scale when you're dealing with excess renewable energy. Keyword is excess. And when you're taking excess renewable energy, which would otherwise have just been curtailed, efficiency is a last concern for people. Right? Think about it. Internal combustion engines that we use on a day-to-day basis are, I think, 20 to 30% efficient, right? And the best F1 engines, for example, let's say that, right, which are some of the highest efficiency internal combustion engines in the world, are only around 50% efficient. So if efficiency was really the name of the game, then nobody would have adopted something like internal combustion engine technology. But the reality is that's not the case, right? We are seeing amazing adoption in internal combustion engines throughout the 1900s, and obviously kind of took off in the 2000s as costs came down for materials in cars, efficiencies went up, and people started traveling more because the reliability of vehicles increased. That's a key word here. Reliability of the technology increased. The lifespan of vehicles increased. That's going to be a very similar trajectory to hydrogen fuel cells. Although it doesn't look like that in the short term, hydrogen fuel cells are going to be one of the major players for decarbonization. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I know some people are going to disagree with that, but there's no technology that has succeeded in the world. It doesn't matter in the transportation space, software space, that has not had a lot of skeptics, right? There's simply no technology like that. So that's something I actually find to be adding to my conviction. The more folks don't tend to believe in the technology and the demand for it and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of what my take is on this article. I haven't read through the whole of it. It looks like there's going to be a couple of stakeholders here working with Nikola. Colton, Ontario, and Port of Long Beach. It's funny, whenever I heard of Ontario, I literally think of the state in Canada, but apparently there's a city called Ontario in California. And I think this is a person people don't give enough credit to. Pablo Koziner is somebody who actually worked at CAT, which is a company that makes all the tractors and the heavy-duty equipment. And he has led this amazing step of moving that company towards growth and actually profitability. And he joined Nikola because he wanted a challenge. And I think that's something that speaks volumes to the opportunity here. Does that mean the Nel order for the electrolyzer with Nikola's? Probably yes, because you need electrolyzers to make hydrogen. And Nikola's plan is to make some hydrogen from electrolyzers where it's cheap, which is in Arizona, and then make hydrogen primarily from blue hydrogen, which is sequestered hydrogen, where you make hydrogen from natural gas and then you put the carbon dioxide underground, right? That's significantly more cost effective. And if you want to talk about cost effectiveness and blame blue hydrogen for being, having a carbon footprint, I think that's a completely dumb assumption to make. And there's a simple reason for that. Because hydrogen in the long term, if we adopt hydrogen technologies for, customer end vehicles, it's going to have a much longer and a much significant impact than just like reducing carbon footprint by a small amount per annum. It's going to have a very major impact in the long term about reducing carbon footprint. And so it's more important to bring the hydrogen technology onto the market and suffer with the high cost in the short term than to worry about, okay, this freaking blue hydrogen has a carbon footprint, or it's not efficient and whatnot. Right, because the goal is to get the hydrogen onto the market and commercialized, and people to start using hydrogen as a fuel. That will significantly accelerate the decarbonization race than worrying about how the hydrogen is produced in the short term. It's a supply chain effect. It's something called the bullwhip effect. You guys might have heard somebody like Michael Burry talk about this. The bullwhip effect is essentially where a small change is amplified in the form of effect at the very end of the cycle. And I think that's something people are not realizing right now. So yeah, that's kind of what my take is on that. So we have until, we have 1 minute left until the earnings come out. Now, I don't know where the press release is going to be issued. I'm not going to lie. So I am just going to do this. So I'm going to go on finviz.com, which is kind of my go-to website for everything related to finance. I'm going to pull it up here. And I'm going to pull up Nikola stock. And we're going to see if Newswire or Business Wire or something like that announce, or give us a press release. So what am I looking for here in the earnings report? Well, I'm looking for revenue realized. I have no estimate for how much revenue because I don't have any idea on how many trucks they might have delivered. But I want some good revenue. I want to see an outline for the fuel cell program. How's the beta builds going? How are the gamma builds going for the 2023? And also, what's the plan on the launch in Europe for the European tray, which is expected to happen in September? So in my opinion, that's going to be a pretty big deal as well, and a pretty important catalyst for Nikola. So looks like it's 9 a.m. So let's just refresh this page and see if we get a press release here. You can see the stock had a pretty good day over the past week or so, or a pretty good week. I can't say that, this is a result of any fundamental news, at least apart from the past 2 days. But I've just been saying that risk assets have been undervalued for a long time. So this is kind of overdue. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Nikola's investor page here. Let's pull it up. Typically, they announce it at 9 a.m. And by the way, guys, I'm not going to be able to do the webcast because I'm a little busy today. I'm not going to be able to broadcast a webcast, but I will give you my reaction to the earnings report real quick so that I don't have to do a call. Okay, so we got the presentation out. Well, no, that's the Romeo Power presentation. Never mind. Q2. We're looking for Q2 here. Yeah, I think they will post it on their website. You're right. Oh, looks like we got a short in the in the chat. I like it. I'll address you in a minute. Give me 1 second here. Let me do something a little bit more important here, which is looking at the earnings report. Business Wire and Newswire always take like a long time to get these press releases out sometimes. So that's fine. Let me know if you guys get the earnings report out or the link to it sometime or somewhere else, because I'm not using Twitter. I don't think they post it on Twitter typically, so I'm not going to bet on that. Nope, nothing yet. All right, in the meantime, let's oh shit, really? At 9:30 a.m.? Oh, come on. They've always released a press release 30 minutes before the call, so I was expecting it to come out right now. Well, yeah, that sucks, but I guess we can do some talking about Nikola. I'll skip the video for this Friday, I guess. I'll just do the video in this freaking live stream instead, and you guys can get my like clean reaction on everything. So, let's talk about first of all what this person in the comment section is addressing. So he's asking, why do I like this company? Now, that's a very difficult question to answer in one sentence, but I've worked in the hydrogen industry personally, and I've understood from a very low level, not a high level, a low level, the importance of this technology and how it'll function. So, for example, what do I mean by that? Low level means like I've worked with the proton exchange membrane technology, and the fuel cell stacks, and the membrane electrode assemblies and whatnot. So, I've seen the I guess the innovation that's been taking place in the space, and the fact that it's a very versatile and very, very scalable technology for hydrogen specifically. And that's one of the things that made me quite excited about Nikola as an investment, is because they were the very first ones that were trying to do a system integration problem or solve a system integration problem using hydrogen. That's a very rare thing to do in my experience, and overall, building a product around hydrogen has been always very, very, very difficult, extremely difficult. And so if some company is going to go on and take on that task, then I would rather support them than not support them. Secondly, there's also a big shift in the sentiment around this company. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I've always had a very, what would you say? What's the word I'm looking for here? I always go against a consensus. Let's just put it that way. Because often I find the best risk to reward investments in that space. Now, risk to reward is something people don't discuss that much. Let me just quickly check if earnings has come out. Nope. Before I address the rest. Damn. Okay. Oh, no, we just got a press release, guys. Right here. Let me make sure that it's legit. I don't want to share with you guys anything that's fake or anything like that. Okay, nice. So we have drum roll, please. We have. Let me just make sure this page is legit. Yep, it's fine. So this is the earnings report. We had $18 million in revenue. Now, I think people expected them to do like $10 million in revenue this semester or this quarter. So that's a beat. Cash of $590 million. So that's $841 million in liquidity available, guys. That's a pretty big deal. I've said this time and time again. This part right here. This company has $1 billion basically in liquidity available. That is significantly cheap for a company that's trading at a $3 billion market cap. Right. Also seems like obviously we got the proposal number 2 authorized, which is great. People still seem to be crying about this being dilutive. It's not. It's the normal stage of how a company grows. So I don't understand why people are concerned about that. Excuse me. So, would you look at that? So production was 50 and deliveries are 48. Inventory is low. Guys, this is a very good deal. This means that there is significant demand for these trucks, and that every single one that's being built is getting fulfilled in the form of ROI, LOI, or MOU, or whatever the ones that Nikola signed in 2020 and 2021. You can see we have a guidance for the, which was around 50 to 60 and 50 to 60 deliveries. So is this Q2? This is Q2 guidance. So Nikola guided for 50 to 60, and they produced 50 to 60. They delivered 48. Or actually, they delivered a total of 52 right now that I see it right here. So they didn't provide any guidance for mobile charging trailer, but they delivered 4 of them. So that counts as a delivery. So yeah, pretty much in range with what they had guided. I think at the start of the year, this was in the Q4 earnings call. So a long time ago, and the situation macroeconomically has significantly changed since then, right? We had the war, we had interest rates. So some people might have canceled contracts, whatever, or some people might just be delaying the onboarding of their trucks or whatnot because they're busy with other stuff. So overall, this is a very good financial overview right here. Good on the deliveries, good on the production. Now let's see what the pilot programs have been like. So you guys remember we had TTSI completed in end of last year. Univar done. Covenant ongoing. Road One and IKEA and Benor Logistics Systems done. This is exciting. You can see the uptime is on average well above 90% right here. This is a pretty big deal. Let me just zoom in so you guys can see this a little bit better. So uptime is on average, I would say, what is this, like 95% uptime, which is very impressive for a new product that just got ramped up, right? People forget that this is not a product that's been on the market for over 5 years. This is a new product on the market that needs to be validated by the market, and clearly the technology is working quite well. And this is why it's a very important thing for Nikola to be an independent company, meaning they're not like developing everything in-house, right? Now with Romeo they are, but there's no point in a company that is a startup trying to take over a very important market to reinvent the wheel and try to literally make every single component of the truck by itself in-house. That is how you go bankrupt in the EV space. Look at Faraday Future. Look at all these other startup companies that failed, especially over the past 2 years, right? Even something like Lordstown Motors, right? They've been trying to design everything in-house. They've failed. It's a failing game. So it's much more important to go to market than to try to be like, have a big ego or whatever and trying to have every technology built in-house. The tricky part is doing the system integration, which is what Nikola is doing, meaning you buy these components off the shelf and then you try to put them together and optimize them in a way that provides high value to the customer. That's not something most companies can do. Otherwise, it would be so easy for everybody to build an EV, right? And that's why I guess it's been so easy for somebody like Ford or GM to go into the EV space, right? I mean, it's like they've been in the EV space for 10 years now. Hint, I was being sarcastic. They have not. They only recently started getting into the EV space because it took them 10 years to master that system integration problem that I was just talking about. And that's when Nikola clearly, through this data, is starting to master a little bit. Now, one of the things I'm very excited about is the fuel cell program. So I have a lot of videos lined up in the hydrogen ecosystem. I have a lot of hydrogen videos lined up that I haven't released yet. So I'm going to do like a hydrogen month for August or something like that. I'm going to just release all these videos that go over my bull case on hydrogen and how that is a main catalyst that makes me very excited about Nikola, and also some of the other stocks that I own in the hydrogen space like Plug Power, Bloom Energy, Advent Technologies, and all this stuff. So keep in mind, keep your calendars in check for that. So a big catalyst right here, guys. We have the Walmart pilot testing to begin on August 22nd. If you're a Nikola shareholder trader, you want to mark this on your calendar immediately. This is a pretty big deal in my opinion. We have a couple of betas already in place or already built out, which is good. So people that don't know how this works, typically when you build a prototype, you do a alpha, a beta, and then a gamma. After gamma is production. And so you improve the technology after you discover any faults or changes or reliability issues in each one of those prototypes. So we had the alpha prototype do a test with the Anheuser-Busch company, which is the beer maker. We saw that in 2022. But now in 2020, in the second and third and fourth quarter, we want to move into the betas because there's clearly a lot of learnings they took from that. So this is an important aspect, and this is where I think Walmart is going to come in. They're going to be able to help these guys out with the beta trucks and allow them to significantly improve their engineering and product development, which again, in my opinion, is a great thing. As for the Coolidge, Arizona facility, it looks like, so this is great. So they're going to be increasing their throughput to 5 units per shift. So that is a pretty big deal in my opinion because 1 unit per shift was actually, I think, what they've been running on for the past 2 months, right? And that's how they've been able to build the 50 trucks, right? So think about that, right? 50 trucks essentially took 50 days to make. 50 days is how much? It's like half a quarter, right? It took them half a quarter to build production units. And these are production units for the tray guys. You guys have seen like the Nikola trays that are sitting, like on these screenshots right here, like, well, these are production units. But, some of the media work that Nikola does, for example, this one right here, like this shot. This is not a production tray. This is not counted in that production number you just saw in the earnings report. This is a pre-production build, a pre-series, or I think it's like an alpha or a beta or gamma build. It's one of those. So that's something you want to keep in mind, right? These are not included. So Nikola's technically built a lot more trucks from that factory. It's just that only some of them were actually production units, and 50 of them turns out were those. And so this is pretty exciting stuff, at least from a supply chain perspective, because if you guys remember, I think Lucid yesterday came out with their earnings report, and they actually missed earnings or deliveries, and they actually reduced their production outlook for the next year, which again, I think either goes towards showing the severity of the supply chain issue, or goes towards showing that Nikola has kind of mastered the supply chain problems, at least for right now. So pretty exciting on that front. Obviously, we had the H2 dispensing agreements just announced. Very exciting on that as well. The next step is going to be announcing logistics for the hydrogen. So to get the hydrogen to the dispensing locations, you need to produce it, you need to process it, you need to compress it, and then you need to give it to the location. Now, I'm sure people are going to be asking, why do you want to do all this stuff? Why do you do this? Isn't it super inefficient? Well, the reality is it's not that simple. I'm a hydrogen engineer, or I used to be one, and it's very difficult for me to explain to you how this works. But just keep in mind that natural gas was something that defined the 22nd century, right? Or the 21st century. I don't know which century we're in. And then before that, we had coal define the 20th century. Then before that, oil, I think it was oil, but coal maybe came before that in the 19th century. Just keep in mind that, in my opinion, the 22nd and the 21st century is going to be the century of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the next evolution from natural gas. We had oil, we had coal, natural gas, which is cleaner, and now we have hydrogen. Hydrogen is the cleanest form because natural gas literally is made up of hydrogen molecules. And obviously, because it's such a simple element, it requires more processing around it. So it's kind of the risk or the sacrifice you have to make if you want to adopt this technology. But the benefits significantly outweigh the risks or the costs in the short term. Just keep that in mind. But I'll have more videos coming out on explaining exactly Nikola's hydrogen strategy and some of the catalysts. So it looks like these stations will be built out by the end of the year or end of next year. Never mind. That's my bad. End of next year. So that's a catalyst you want to keep in mind. Now, this is where we get into some of the more important near-term catalyst stuff. So Nikola announced, obviously, they have a European joint venture with Iveco. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is because the European market is essentially just as untouched as the American market. Now, there's more competition in Europe. There are more companies that already have trucks out on the road. But the opportunity for battery electric solutions is much bigger. And also hydrogen and electric, because infrastructure is actually much more rolled out and developed and mature in Europe. And so I mentioned this in a few videos ago. Nikola has a catalyst coming up in September. They have a major, I think they have a major, what is it, a conference or something, Hannover Messe or something in Germany, where they're going to be unveiling the Nikola tray European version. And that's going to be a pretty big catalyst. People right now just trying to price in the work Nikola's doing in the US, but Europe is a pretty big market in itself. And the reason Iveco is partnering with them is because Nikola's mastered the system integration problem that I just talked about, right? Iveco has a difficult time doing that because they're an ICE company. All their production lines are tooled based on an ICE platform, and it's impossible for them to convert that to an EV platform. And it's also impossible for them to do all the R&D and the software that goes into developing an EV platform, optimizing it, testing it. And so that's where Nikola comes in. Nikola now also has many stakeholders tied together, right? They have Travel Centers of America. They have all these hydrogen and trucking stops already in place, which is also something that Iveco just does not have, right? It's just Iveco does not have the money to spend on that. But Nikola does. Nikola has the time, the executive team, and the money to do that. So that's where Nikola comes in. Now, I know some people are going to probably analyze this a lot. This is essentially the income statement for the second quarter. But just keep in mind, you don't want to overanalyze this in the short term. You want to look at the annual report, because this is a growth story, and there's going to be no profitability anytime soon. So anybody who's talking about Nikola not being profitable is essentially telling you that water is wet. Simple as that. Just treat them as telling you that water is wet, because they're not telling you anything new. It's not surprising that Nikola is not profitable, but we can still look at some of these statements to understand how much cash they're burning and what's their operating expenses. So it looks like in the second quarter, their operating expenses jumped year over year from 138 million to 172. Now, if I'll be honest, that is not that big. Now, yes, ideally you don't want operating expenses to go up. And unfortunately, Nikola can't do anything about that because they're ramping up production, guys, right? It's a completely different story. So I would have expected it to be a little bit higher, actually, because Nikola has obviously been doing a lot of importing for the parts and sourcing and procurement for the trucks. So it looks like that on average it's costing them around 40 million more, which is not as bad as I would have thought. But as you can see, year to date at least, Nikola's burnt, this is not cash burn, by the way, this is just operating expenses. Cash burn is a little bit different, but at least from operating expenses side, $323 million versus 258. I think that is a casual growth. It's not exponential, it's not like crazy, but it is reasonable and it's expectable from a company that is in such an early stage. As for the outlook for the rest of the year, looks like Nikola is on track for 300-500. I think that's good. You don't want to go over whatever your estimate is or whatever you had announced previously, because the supply chain situation is still developing. Pilot test completed with TTSI and Hyzer-Push. Beta trucks, like I mentioned, going to be built out. Announced location, break ground, and commence construction of the first hydrogen production hub. Yes, so this is the major catalyst that I was talking about. So you can see this catalyst right here, or milestone, has just been achieved. So these are going to be built out over the next 2 years. But the more important part is this hydrogen production hub. Now, what is a hub, right? A hub is where you're going to produce and source the hydrogen, process it, compress it, and then you're going to transport it to whatever locations you want. Now, keep this in mind. This is not something you can do with something like natural gas. You can't do this with electricity either, right? You can't just transport electricity from one place to the other on trucks. You can't put a bunch of batteries on a truck, right? And so with hydrogen, you can do that. That's the big breakthrough here. You can transport hydrogen on trucks. And so you can just transport it like gasoline, ethanol, methanol, any of these fuels. That gives insane versatility to stakeholders and insane versatility to end users as well. And so if Nikola is going to be able to successfully build out production hub, meaning they're going to make the hydrogen there, a logistics team is going to be able to transport the hydrogen, and then a dispensing partner for the ability to store the hydrogen on site when it's needed, and then supply it to customers, and do it through the lease program that Nikola has announced for the fuel cell trucks, then that's going to be a big deal, because that is vertical integration across the entire value chain. Yes, it's going to take a lot of capital up front. Yes, there's going to be dilution coming maybe in the next year or so. But most dilution gets eaten up for these high growth companies, especially if they happen during the bull phases of the market. So dilution is not a concern for me at all, because there's way too much volatility on Nikola stock already. But this is a pretty good progress in the right direction, in my opinion. And I think this is going to play very well in the hands of Nikola's sentiment, or the investor sentiment around this company, because obviously some people are still brainwashed enough to think this company is a scam or whatnot, because, they just reported $18 million in revenue. So that's, in my opinion, a pretty big deal. Oh, and another thing I forgot to address is the net loss per share. It's 25 cents. That's on paper not that bad. Obviously, it's going to be a net loss because the company is not profitable. But if you compare it to the share price, which I haven't looked at the share price, let me look at it real quick. So it looks like we're up in pre-market, which is exciting. I don't really expect Nikola stock to have a big reaction because, well, the stock already ran up a little bit over the past 3 days. And the real revenue for the company is going to come in the next 18 to 20 months, right? That's where the valuation will be justified for the company. That's something I want you guys to keep in mind, right? I think Nikola is expected to do $600 million in revenue next year by analysts. Is that realistic? I have no clue. But Nikola is expected to do, let's say, 120 million this year. That puts the stock at a price of sales of, I think, 35, 40, right? That's pretty expensive. But in 2023, if Nikola can continue this momentum, they might sell $600 million worth of trucks. At that point, the price of sales of the stock is only like 4. The company's trading at 3,000 million. Revenue is 600 million, right? Do the math on that. That is like inexpensive for a growth company. For a company that's growing at 100, 200, 300% year over year. Completely inexpensive. And if Nikola is able to raise capital, then that's going to go up even more, right? The valuation, the multiple is going to go up because it's going to price in, investors are going to try to price in more security for the company and the company. So that's kind of the key idea to keep in mind here. As you can see, the stock is, I think, going up a little bit in pre-market, primarily because, well, Nikola delivered revenue. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. Where is the extended hours? Okay, there we go. So I don't typically look at stock prices because I do trading on the side, like I do options trading, but I do it intraday. I don't like overnight anything. But if you guys really want to know like what's going to happen with the stock, I can give you some very, very rough predictions based on just the technical analysis. So you can see right now high of day was what, like $8, so that's a pretty big resistance. I'm going to look at this as a perspective of a trader if I were to trade this stock. So, okay, 1 second. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So, you know how I was mentioning when Nikola stock was running up back in end of March that like you want to probably sell at that time, or not sell, or not buy. Basically, that's what I was saying. I was saying don't buy anymore because chances are the price is going to come down. And there's a pretty easy reason for that, right? You can see the 200-day moving average was right there. And we also had this big resistance area at around $12. So even though the fundamentals were amazing, and I actually bought a little bit up here because my conviction increased in the company. I didn't end up buying anything up here, right? Because I didn't want to buy. I was like, the stock technically is going to come down. So that's what happened. Obviously, I also got lucky, or I don't even call myself lucky or whatnot, but the prediction ended up working out a little bit better because the market ended up tanking for the rest of April. So that's completely out of my control. But the key idea to keep in mind is the technicals work until they don't. And long-term fundamentals overturn the technicals. So all the stuff that I've been talking about over the past 6 months about the stock being not overvalued or anything like that, but like not buying at a very, very high price when it's FOMO, it's just all technicals. It does not mean like my conviction in the company has changed. My conviction on Nikola has not gone down a single bit over the past 6 months, or the conviction in any of my companies, Plug Power, Bloom Energy, because the fundamentals have improved. And yes, sure, I might be overpaying for some of these companies, and I guess you could say in hindsight I overpaid for Nikola because my average cost basis is around I think $9.90 or something like that. It's pretty high, right? It's pretty expensive, but that's because I started buying the stock in summer of 2021. That's when I realized and I came across this company. And if you look at it in hindsight, let's see. summer 2021, the stock was at like what? It was at like $10, $11 a share. So the stock being at $7 after this massive bear market, I think is a win-win. Right? It's not that bad. And yes, in the short term, we're still in a downtrend. So chances are, unfortunately, we might reject from $8 and start going down again. I don't know. But what I would say is if we get above this $8.30 region, then the stock has a very high chance of going up to 11. Because you can see this area always provided a lot of resistance. I'll put the line right there. And I think that's just the reality of the technicals, at least in the short term. So if we get this level, we might reject. But if we break above that, then we go crazy to $11. As for what about a 52-week low? I don't know if I would bet on another 52-week low with the idea that inflation could be peaking. But if inflation doesn't peak, then yeah, we're going to hit another 52-week low probably, because the rest of the market's going to hit a 52-week low. So I'm not too concerned about that. Again, I have most of my money invested in the market. I have very minimal money in my savings account or my checking account. Even if the market's going up, like I have a process where every week I funnel money out of my banks into my investments, into my investment accounts, and I distribute them somewhat evenly across all my companies. Now, yes, the growth portfolio that I have, right, which I showed you on M1 Finance, which is like all these companies, like all these high growth companies, right, Plug Power, Nikola, blah blah blah. That's a risky portfolio, right? Some of those companies are not going to win, right? Nikola could be one of those, but I don't believe Nikola is going to be one of those. Some of those companies are going to be losers. But the key idea is that I want to make sure that my winning trades or my winning investments outweigh my losing investments. And that's kind of how I'm balancing the portfolio. So I'm ready to lose money. I know I'm going to lose money. It's inevitable. But I want to make sure that my winners outweigh my losers. So it looks like we just had a market open. So I'm not going to be able to live stream the earnings call, guys. I have to go in 10 minutes, but I will share with you guys my last reaction to this report. Let's see if it's announced on Finviz, by the way. Yes, so we got a new article here from MarketWatch. I always love hearing from these guys. These guys are always nice and kind and fair to what's happening. So you can see that MarketWatch announced beat expectations and delivery target affirmed. So it looks like the consensus was $16 million of revenue for the second quarter. So we beat that by $2 million, which again I think is just carrying the momentum for Nikola. Nikola's been beating expectations for the past year, but people have not been budging an eye because obviously the company hasn't reported any revenue or anything like that. So yeah, this is a good deal, guys. We're continuing to mount on the momentum for Nikola. I think this is an important aspect for how the business is going to approach. So yeah, I want to keep that in mind. I'm looking at the stock market right now, guys, and Coinbase is going crazy. It's at 40%. It's 40% higher today. So I'm just like, I'm sure most of you guys don't care about Coinbase stock, but that thing is up 40% right now. That's a risk-on market for you guys. That's never been a more risk-on market than that. Let me actually pull up the Coinbase chart. So I might go on a little bit of a divergence here, but I own a lot of companies in the clean hydrogen energies in the software space because I see something undervalued. Well, look, if you see, like Coinbase was one of the stocks I was hammering for the past 2 months, and it's up over 60% in the past 2 days. I'm not saying I'm a fortune teller or anything like that. I'm not. It's completely random. All I'm trying to say is that holding onto your conviction can be very rewarding. You know, the market will always say that you're wrong. It'll try to prove you're wrong. But it's always rewarding to hold on to your own conviction. Even if you end up losing money, because in the long term, if you stick to your process, you're going to make money. If you stick to a good process, that is, right? That's something that I try to teach people, is have a good process of investing. Maybe I'll do a video on that or something. But yeah, Coinbase up being 40% today is kind of an icing on the cake, along with Nikola's amazing beat. It's funny. I only heard about Coinbase being up because I got a text from one of my friends who owns Coinbase stock with me, and he just texted me. So yeah, amazing stuff. I'm gonna call it a day for the stream right now, guys. Unless you have any last minute questions in the chat, please let me know. Market is open. Let me look at Plug Power. If Plug is doing anything. Yeah, you can see Plug is also up significantly over the past 3 days. Looks like they just got a new contract. Wow, amazing. They did just get a new contract. That's fantastic. Look at that. Plug is down a little bit. Plug is always kind of does its own thing, so I'm fine. I think Plug and Nikola are too good future company. Yeah, man. I'm betting on fuel cells and hydrogen. So for me, I'm completely fine with this. But yeah, my conviction in the company is just staying strong. If they get overvalued, maybe I'll look to selling. But right now, I think a lot of them are a little bit too oversold. But we'll see how this plays out. But as usual, guys, make sure to drop me a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button if you guys have not already. Yeah, I appreciate you guys joining me for my first live stream. I'll try to do more of these in the future. But yeah, exciting stuff. Nikola beating analyst estimates is definitely something I wanted to see today. And overall, my conviction in the company has stayed very strong throughout this report. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.